Hi, it's February, so it's the middle of the New Zealand summer, although it is quite wet and humid at the moment. So I'm seeing a lot of algal and fungal infections in people's gardens. The other thing I'm seeing a lot of recently is people using chemicals sprays, whether they be pesticides, herbicides or fungicides. Now for me, I know other ways of getting rid of weeds, and that's what this video is going to eventually be about. Now I often ask my clients to please give me permission to not come to their properties for 2 weeks after they have sprayed. So why spray? Well, a lot of elderly people, often even with raised beds, find it quite difficult to reach over and pull weeds. If you are a superannuant in New Zealand, I encourage you to check out whether there's funding available to employ a gardener, because I know that sometimes there is. Now, people go into the suppliers, they look at the shelves, they see weed killer and they think, yep, cool, safe, take it home, spray it. Now, I've seen it on client sites where people have pets and where they have small children around. So if you choose to use these chemicals, please make sure you read the labels before you do anything. These are toxic. Now, because the bottles are generally only so big, and because manufacturers have to meet labelling requirements, the writing is often quite small, and sometimes you have to peel back the label to find the most important instructions. So get your magnifying glass out, get your telescope out, read them. Now, why do I choose to not use them? Well, I just don't want to be around them. I've had allergic reactions to sprays in the past, and my dog comes everywhere with me. I've also done my research, and my view is that I prefer to be safe. And I prefer to be safe until these products are proven to be safe. Whereas in some countries I know they take the opposite approach. They say, well, yes, you can continue to use them until they are proven unsafe. Okay, so how do you get rid of weeds? Just look over here. Here's some that have been sprayed recently. Couple of kinds of chemical sprays. There's a systemic spray which gets right down into the roots, and there's a contact spray which is just about the leaves. I suspect these have been sprayed with a contact spray. Now what I often find is that I come to a client, it's been sprayed, and then the weeds grow straight back, or new weeds grow because you've created conditions in which they will thrive. If you just look down here, this is an acanthus, classic example. Its roots go really deep. This spray hasn't penetrated them. That's going to grow back. This one here, this is glossy nightshade. It's a bit limp, but it's still doing okay, isn't it? Now, here are some ways to get rid of these. Glossy nightshade, go down to the base, pull it out, chuck it on the ground, clean it up when you've got time later. Acanthus, you really got to dig it out. Okay, now if you're on a hard surface, generally what I do is I go around with a weed whacker, and if you can imagine, I'm holding one now. I knock the weeds off at the base. Oh, sorry, that wasn't a good example. Okay, we'll use this one. I knock the weeds off at the base so the insides of the stems are exposed. Then I spray them with vinegar. Now, again, there's a debate about whether vinegar is any good, but again, I just use household white vinegar, 5% acetic acid, so it's not too rough. and I notice as long as you're using it on hard surfaces, it generally does the job without any adverse environmental effects. Now, again, key, expose the inside of the stems so the plant sucks the vinegar down into the roots. The other thing is, do it on a fine day, because the sun on it and the effect of the vinegar going into it will kill the plants. Obviously, if it's raining, it's just going to wash away. Now, I've got friends who have got an organic deer farm. They used to have a problem with thistles, So what they used to do is they'd go out for evening walks, and as they did, I think they had a machete. This is the Japanese hoe, by the way. Very useful tool for weeding. Anyway, they just go around during flowering time, knock the flowering heads off before they were ready to set seed. The idea being that the plant's putting all its energy into reproducing. So if you knock it down then, eventually they'll run out of steam. Now it took them a long time, but eventually their paddocks were thistle free, and obviously that's not feasible for every farmer to do that, but it may be feasible on a residential section. At my place now, and I've got an average sized residential garden, I spend about 5 minutes a week weeding. That's because I put the effort into getting the weeds, rid of the weeds in the first place. So I went round, pulled them out, knocked them down, mulched over the top of them with quite a thick layer of mulch. If you want to know about mulching, please watch my video on mulching. I've got a caveat to add there too, and that's that there are some plants that don't like mulch around them because it holds moisture at their base. So they're things like succulents, agave, yuccas. I've also noticed that there are some New Zealand natives like the cordyline, the cabbage tree family, who don't like it either. Anyway, that's it, a couple of alternative methods to using chemical sprays. Just when you thought I'd finished, I thought of one more thing to say, and that's that there is an old school organic method where people put salt on weeds to kill them. Don't do that. It does kill them, but it's also really toxic. Salt doesn't break down, it goes everywhere. It can affect your soil, it can affect the waterways, it can affect your pets if they lick it. So don't use salt. Thanks.